the first person I'd like to introduce is Catherine, and Catherine is going to tell us about emotional health. I'm not going to, Catherine's going to introduce herself, but I will introduce Catherine through my interaction with her. So I would say that Catherine, she walks her talk. I met her at a conference and she demonstrated her compassion and her expertise by just the engagement that she had with me. And I offer you, Catherine, to delight us with her findings about the difference between emotional health and mental well-being.
Thank you very much, Yewande. Can everybody hear me? Right, I'm there. Welcome everybody, fantastic to be here. Thank you to Yewande for inviting me. I'm in very stormy Southampton today, and I hope the weather's better where you are. So I'm going to talk to you today about taking charge of your emotional health. And as I speak, I'd love you to be thinking, asking the questions of who is in charge of my emotional health? Is it, the government? Is it COVID? Is it all, issues that have happened in my past? Is it my fears? Who is in charge of my emotional health? And I want to give you a distinction between emotional health and mental health. And one of the reasons for that is because I think mental health and mental health problems have become a real buzzword, and you hear people talking about and saying, I've got this mental health problem. And often when I look at it, I wonder to myself, is this really a mental health problem, a long-term thing? Or is it more an emotional health problem? Because there's such a difference in language. When you start saying I have an emotional health problem, or I might have an emotional health problem, it's so much more empowering, and it opens the door to being able to do something about it. So today I want to share some of the observations from my practice with you and get you to think about a few things a little bit more deeply. So a little bit about me. So I was born with a heightened awareness about feelings, and even to the extent that I could feel other people's feelings, sometimes in my body. So I grew up with this heightened awareness about feelings, and I became fascinated with feelings, and it became a lifetime's journey for me to understand about how feelings affect our health, our physical health, our relationships, our finances, our choice of work. I mean, so many things are affected by how we feel and how we deal with our feelings. So from a very young age, I made it my path in life to discover more about all these connections between us and our feelings and other people and their feelings, and how it affects behavior, how it affects our thoughts, how it affects our functioning in the world, and everything that we choose to do in our days. And so that interest evolved into, I studied counseling, I studied psychotherapy, I've worked in the voluntary sector for a number of years, and the statutory sector, and then more recently I've become a therapeutic transformational coach. And the reason is I think this is an area where people either think they know a lot about it, but so many people are suffering from their feelings. And so they say they're overwhelmed and they're stressed, but they don't know how really to do anything much about it. And it's so easy. So just pass in the comments here if you agree with this, if you've experienced this. It's so easy to get stuck in a feeling, in a behavior, in a pattern, in a thought, and not know how to get out of it. So that's really what I want to talk to you about today, is about the impact of our emotions on our health, and some of the observations that I've had with my clients, and how we can get back into control. So to start with, what is emotional health and what is mental health? So I looked up some definitions here that I wanted to share with you. And mental health is related to brain and mind, our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, and it can go on a scale of optimal functioning to debilitating mental illness. Now that's important, because often people think of mental health as being just mental illness, right? Not they hear mental health and they think in mental illness, and it isn't. Mental health is the whole gamut, it's the whole spectrum, the whole ball game. And the way it influences our thoughts and actions in 3 key areas: in psychological, and in social, and in emotional. And the bit that I'm really going to talk to you about today, or just introduce you a few ideas about, is around emotional health. So emotional health refers to the way that we view and live wellness. It's about how we have this awareness of our emotions and how we actively manage our emotions. Now, the word here I want you to see is actively manage. Now, just tell me in the comments, who actively manages their feelings? Now, by that I mean on a day-to-day basis. Are you aware of them? Are you managing them? Are you holding them or not? Are they overwhelming? Are they just these things that are just bogging you down? Just let me know in the comments here. And a lovely quote here I wanted to share with you: emotional health focuses on being in tune with our emotions, our vulnerability, and our authenticity. All of those so important. So what happens when we start to take care of our emotional health? Amazing things start to happen. Our stress levels go down. We have higher self-esteem. We have a greater sense of purpose. And we have more space within us to be able to do more creative things and produce things that we want to produce. We have increased self-awareness, and we have more resilience. We can work through the challenges. It's not going to stop us having the challenges, because this is a journey, emotional well-being. It's not a one-stop shop. So this gives us the resilience to be able to bounce back from things much more quickly. Another really key difference is that we realize that feelings are temporary. They're temporary. Once you understand that, you know however awful and oppressive a feeling might be, and however long lasting it is, you can move through it. Maybe you haven't been taught how, but it's possible, once you understand that feelings are temporary, that you can open your mind to the possibility of, how can I move through this? Please help me move through this. And this is really what I'm teaching people to do and educating people around. So it gives you inner peace, and it gives you another phenomenal thing, which is emotional energy. Now, this is one of the most underutilized resources in the world, because often our emotional energy is caught up in the mess of our emotional lives and our relationships and our blocks and our incapacities, rather than when we start taking care of our emotional well-being, then we've got this emotional energy that we can focus and we can use to transform our lives and to smooth our lives and smooth our ways. And it's very, very powerful, but we don't realize that it's there. So how can we look after our emotional health? And these are some of the things that I teach my clients and my students. We can spend time becoming aware of our feelings. We can realize when we're projecting those feelings on other people and blaming them, rather than recognizing how what they are doing is affecting us, because that is the part that we can deal with. It's starting to notice when we're feeling empowered and when we're feeling disempowered, and how that is connected into our feelings, becoming aware of our deep-seated patterns. And then sharing our feelings and not just our thoughts. And what that means is it's so much more comfortable to say, I think this, and these are my thoughts, and I'm going to share my thoughts because it feels so much safer to share my thoughts with someone than to share my feelings. But when you share your feelings with somebody, that is connecting into your body and into your deeper self. And that is where there's a whole wellspring of well-being that's just waiting to come in when you take the courage to share your feelings and not just your thoughts. Knowing what wellness means to you is, once you experience more emotional well-being, it's something you want more of. So when you know why it's important, then it's so much easier to feel more motivated to do more with it. And then remembering that your emotional well-being is in your hands, that you can take charge of it, you can have an impact on it. And finally here, the practicing self-care and self-compassion. And this is probably the thing that I see most of, that is the most difficult thing for people to do. And that is the biggest resistance and reluctance that we have, which is to actually feel our feelings. And if I was to tell you that feeling is healing, feeling is healing, and yet we think about our emotions, we might talk about our emotions, but actually taking the time to sit down and fully feel them in our body is absolute rocket science to a lot of people. And when they do feel them, often they can get lost in the feeling and not know how to feel them in a way that we can transform them and move through them. And these are the tools and processes that I feel are not out there enough. And this is part of my mission, to get these tools and processes out so that we can utilize them. We can move through these feelings and access our emotional energy, which changes our health, which changes our relationships, our finances, and everything. So practicing self-care, and that is like, if we're not looking after ourselves, who is going to be looking after us? And it's so much deeper than having a massage or eating chocolate. It is an active practice that you can keep adding to and moving through and noticing what is making you feel emotionally well, what is adding to your emotional well-being, and what is detracting from it. So self-compassion, finally, is just being committed to being so kind to yourself and to doing this deep inner work of embracing and allowing your feelings, breathing into them and through them, so that you're not getting stuck in them and you're not getting lost in them and you're not getting overwhelmed by them. So there you go, just a brief introduction to emotional health, and how you can take charge of your emotional health. And and if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat, and please give me the answer to now, what has stood out from this for you? What will you take away from this? Has this inspired you? I really hope it has, and I look forward to speaking to you at the end. Thank you all very much.